You are now listening to Season 1 of the VMX Show.
Hey everybody, NecroVMX here, and I am a member of the Guardians of the Globe. Welcome to the VMX Show Season 1, Episode 4. This is our 4th episode, and hey, it's on time this week. It's not early, it's not late, it's on Sunday, so that technically is on time. I'd like to start off, let's take a look at the questions you left for me. I'm not getting a whole lot of questions. I think that some people feel once they ask a question, they can't ask again. Feel free, load me up with questions. I don't care. You know, if I have too many, then I'll just pick and choose some and leave the rest for the next week. So let's take a look at what we got. Okay, so here's a question from Jake the Snake 1, the number one strange commentator on my YouTube. Now, I'm not trying to insult you or anything, man. It's just that some of the comments you leave me, I just scratching my head. But, you know, keep doing what you're doing. He asks me, I have a question for you. Have you heard of a game called Dark Cloud? Yes, I have heard of it. Okay, I don't know why people ask me, have you heard of a game? I get that all the time. I've heard of it. I haven't played it. I don't own it. But, yeah, I've heard of it. For those of you who are wondering, Dark Cloud is a game for the PlayStation 2, somewhat of a dungeon crawler. And there was also a sequel, Dark Cloud 2, which I believe is also on PlayStation 2. I heard it's actually very influenced by Legend of Zelda, despite it being dungeon crawl. So yeah, I mean, maybe one day I'll see if I see a copy, I'll pick it up. It was one of the very first PlayStation 2 games. As a matter of fact, I think it might have been a launch title. I'm not sure about that, but it was very early in the PlayStation 2's lifespan. Here's another one. The user He Threw Up Everywhere asks me if I like Gran Turismo 2. Well, I haven't played it. I haven't played any of the Gran Turismo games because, quite honestly, if I'm going to play racing games, I don't actually like the simulation racing games. I prefer more arcade racing games. So I'm not really going for, you know, Gran Turismo. Maybe I'd go more for Need for Speed. But really, my speed is more like your San Francisco Rush or your Mario Kart. I like, you know, and I also like the high-speed crazy ones like F-Zero and Extreme G Racing. So, you know, Gran Turismo, you know, it's one of those games that I sit there and I play it and I say, this is far too realistic to be fun. So I don't know, if you're really into cars, if you're really into racing and that kind of nonsense, I suppose Gran Turismo is a great series. But for me, I really don't care about it. Here's a follow-up comment from AzurMage253. I remember he left a comment last time about the PlayStation 3 yellow LED of death, I believe he called it. He says that he does not own the afflicted model of PS3 that he referred to. He has an 80GB model from mid-07, the last run to bear any PS2 compatibility. So, just based on that, I would say that that is the one to get, the 80GB from mid-07. If you get that, you're going to get the PlayStation 2 compatibility, you get a slightly larger hard drive, and it seems that it's not afflicted by the error that he was speaking of. He was made aware of the issue through his subscriptions and did some digging to find out what the yellow LED of death was all about. Okay, so just thanks for the follow-up comment, AzurMage253. Roy's story, I don't know where this came from, why he posted it here, but he said that he's the one who requested Body Harvest, Sorry for My Pain, and he still thinks it's awesome. If what he's referring to, not only did I not like Body Harvest, but I'm constantly getting asshole comments on that video. There are certain videos that, if I say a game, I don't like it or whatever, then of course I'm going to get all these assholes, like X-Men on the Genesis, Body Harvest on N64. And of course there's games that just, I like the game, but I don't like the franchise or the license, like Dragon Ball Advance. I'm always getting asshole comments. And of course wrestling games, although I don't like the games very much. Of course I'm going to make fun of wrestling fans because it's so easy. And I get the comments and it just makes me smile because they fall right into my hands. Systemic776 left me a comment that's very interesting. When I first started the VMX show, I started uploading these videos that were just a minute long, no sound, just white text on black telling you, hey, the new VMX show is available, links in the comments. This is just for convenience. This is just to update you, especially if you're the kind of person who doesn't use like a Google Reader or an iTunes or whatever, and you don't have an RSS reader, you don't want to deal with that, you just want to download the show directly or stream it directly from my server. So, giving you the links, or if you're new to the show and you need the links to subscribe to the show, then, I think those videos are very useful. The first time I did it, I instinctively disabled, ratings on it, because I've seen some very popular YouTubers, like guys who have way more subscribers and views than me, who would do a video like that, just like a quick update video to let you know, and invariably they get 1-starred, and I don't understand why people do that. It's like, oh, well, this video isn't what I was expecting, it's just some update giving me useful information, so I'm going to 1-star it. And a bunch of people did do that on the video. The VMX show Season 1, Episode 3 is now available, which I put up last week to let you guys know that Episode 3 is available. And I don't understand why people do that. And I added an annotation. I said, if you 1-star this, you're a dick. That's a major dick move. Systemic says, who gives 1 star? Even if he hates something, he just stops watching it. Doesn't bother with rating it bad. What a moron. I agree. I mean, it's always been my opinion that YouTube should just get rid of the stars. Just get rid of the stars, get rid of the thumbs. I've still let people rate. I've taken off the thumb comments, the thumb up and thumb down, and what happened with this one is I just forgot to remove the ratings on that video. I'm going to be doing that from now on because seriously, who sits there and does that? You got way, way, way too much time on your hands if you're like 1-starring videos. And really, what reason is it? Because it's not worth watching? It's not worth getting the update? I don't know. If you're a subscriber and you're doing it, then I want to know what is exactly your problem. As a matter of fact, here, I'm not even going to retaliate against you. If you're listening to this and you've ever done that, where you've given 1 star to a video like that, let me know why you do it. Why do that? I want to know. I want to know what's going through your head. I'm not going to block you. I just want to know. And here's a question that was emailed to me from SSerpent21. Dear NecroVMX, as a fan of the Dragon Quest games, what is your memory of the hardest dungeon to get through in any of the games? I'll guess it's the cave to the Rhone Plateau from Dragon Quest II, with all the pitfalls and looping corridors. That cave is a tough son of a bitch fucker. More so with the Soul Powerhouse and 2 weaklings who follow you around who can't fight at all. Well, they can use magic. it's my choice anyway. Thank you, have a great day, love the show, keep up the good work, and pray there isn't a Hong Kong 98. Well, there couldn't possibly be. I don't see how they do that. I mean, I suppose somebody might do that as a joke. As for, this is tough, I've been thinking about this, what is the hardest dungeon that I've gone through in a Dragon Quest game? That's tough, because I don't remember any of them as being specifically hard. The Cave to Roan was kind of hard. I actually, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say Charlotte Castle from Dragon Quest III, which is, of course, where you fight Zoma. That one is just non-stop, really tough battles. At that point in Dragon Quest III, every battle, you have to approach it as if it was a boss battle. And I think that Dragon Quest III overall is probably one of the hardest ones. So I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. It's the only thing I can come up with. Great question, though. That's an interesting question asking me what's the hardest dungeon. Not the hardest Dragon Quest game, but the hardest dungeon. Very interesting. See, the reason that I don't remember any of them as being particularly hard also is when it comes to Dragon Quest, I tend to over-prepare for everything. So I'm always, if you look at, like, say, walkthroughs on GameFAQs.com or whatever, and they're giving you, here's where you are, this is the recommended level, this is what your level, should be at this point in the game, and I'm always way above that, because I'm always exploring and doing side quests and everything, especially Dragon Quest VIII, which, as you guys know, is my favorite role-playing game of all time. And if you didn't know that, check out the top 10 RPGs list in my playlists. That was another that was another bit of drama with that I put Zelda Wind Waker on there. I expected people to come after me because they thought that it shouldn't have been Wind Waker, that it should have been Ocarina or Link to the Past or whatever, or Twilight Princess. And instead they're coming after me telling me Zelda's not an RPG. And that to me was hilarious, because in my preamble video I had laid out 6 criteria that I believe a game has to meet for me to call it an RPG, and Zelda definitely meets all of those. I think that people, I don't know, I think this is the younger crowd mostly. I think the younger crowd, they think that if it doesn't have, turn-based battles and experience points, it's not an RPG or whatever. I don't know, some of these people, I would ask them, is Final Fantasy XIII an RPG? Would you call that an RPG, even though it's all real-time, very fast-paced, very linear, there's no experience points, there's no levels, there's no random battles. Some people think these are absolute requirements to role-playing games, and they're not. You look at some of the earliest role-playing games. Here's the very first console RPG. Not the very first RPG, but the very first console RPG, Adventure, for the Atari 2600, which in itself was based on a PC game that was mostly based on text. And basically what they did with Adventure was they cut out all the text and turned it into a game with graphics, and basically cut out all the story. It's considered by most to be the very first role-playing game, and what is it? It doesn't have levels. It doesn't have any of that if you play it. I mean, that's an early example, but there are games that are still like that. I don't understand why people get into this. It's not an RPG. If you think that, fine, whatever, but you're not going to change my mind, so don't even bother trying. One thing that I did want to talk about today was something that happened on YouTube. I'm actually going to go over right now. I'm bringing up the window for the video that this happened on, which is the Donkey Kong Jr. arcade video. A lot of people have asked me if I was going to address this on the show. I said yes, I am, so here we are addressing it. On this video, out of nowhere, user Mario Kev just came out of nowhere and just fucking snapped. I don't know if you've been drinking or, doing a little bit of the narcotics, or maybe his bloody asshole lover just hit him from behind a little bit too hard. Gotta be gentle with Mario Kev. I don't know what happened. Out of nowhere, he's like, "Okay, NecroVMX, I will lay this down for you." I'm reading this directly. This is a direct quote. "I'm not doubting the quality of your videos or the quantity, but what I hate," like I asked him what he hates, I don't know, "is that you want to be treated like a god." Now let me stop right here. I don't know where this came from, because there's nothing in the video that has anything to do with him. And as a matter of fact, I hadn't talked to him in a long time. He's always left me comments, really, I've never had a particular problem with Mario Kev, so this is like coming out of left field. The reason I didn't block him immediately is because he's been a subscriber for a long time, and I'm wondering, what the hell is he talking about? Where is this coming from, and why is this on the Donkey Kong Jr. arcade video? I was wondering, like, what is this guy's beef with me? Where did this come from? As for, people say, do I want to be treated like a god? No, certainly. Do not worship me. Do not kiss my ass. I hate that. I hate that because it just comes off as fake and pandering. And you know what? I get it all the time. I get people who IM me on YouTube, and IM me on AIM, rather, from YouTube. And all they want to talk about, all they want to tell me is how awesome I am. And I don't want to hear about it. I mean, if you want to say, I like your videos, thanks for making them, and I'll say, oh, yeah, no problem, thanks for watching, or whatever. But if you want to have a conversation with me, and I put my AOL Instant Messenger up there for a reason, because I enjoy having conversations with people with like interests, please have something to talk about. I don't know, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, and I just stop responding at that point, because it's like, who wants to sit there and get their ass kissed? I don't want people blowing smoke up my ass all day. It's so fake and phony, and it just comes across as very sycophantical, really. So I don't want to be treated like a god. Then he says, if someone states an opinion on one of your videos that you don't like, you go apeshit. No, I just tell them I don't like it. I express my own opinion. I mean, the only time I'll quote-unquote go apeshit, which I guess is his way of saying I blocked them, is if they post something like, you're a fag. Well, guess what? That's not an opinion I'm ever going to respect. Then he says, one time I requested a game, didn't say much, only the title and game and the system, and you went apeshit. I'm waiting a response from you. This guy needs to learn how to speak English. And I was like, well, what is he talking about? Because, he's requested things, and I've done the requests, and I haven't had any problems with him. So I went into my email, because I keep everything, and I did a search for his name, and I looked it up, and I couldn't even find the exact thing that he was talking about. But I think it was something like, this was last year. This was in, like, September of 2009. He posted something like, do a video on something, and I don't like that. You got to ask nicely. You don't have to say, like, please and pretty please with sugar on top and all that bullshit. But at least act like you're asking me to do something and not demanding that I do it, because that's very rude, and I don't see the need. I don't see the reason why I should put up with rudeness. And actually, not only do I have that post from him, but I have his apology, and that's all water under the bridge. And I hadn't thought about it, and I don't know. Maybe his apology was a bunch of fake bullshit, and maybe he just has been sitting there stewing all this time, which is stupid. If you have a problem with someone, you should come out and say it and not sit there and stew. So I don't know. So he left that comment there, and, somebody else, FoxFang96 came back at him before I had a chance, and just basically told him, what it is. You sound like a dick, and, why are people so rude? And if you go out and say something like Duck Hunt NES, do a video on it, and you don't even say please, that comes off as dick. And his response is, I sound like a dick. This is exactly what I expect from a NecroVMX fanboy. So apparently anybody who doesn't agree that I'm an asshole is a fanboy, whatever that means. You're completely ignoring what I said. Now he's responding to what you said. Don't start shit if you don't know what's going on. So, these two went back and forth a little bit. One thing that Mario Kev said that stuck out to me is, why would I say please? He's not my fucking mother. Well, maybe your mother was teaching you, it looks like she tried to do her best for you, Mario Kev. She tried to teach you to be polite. I think one important lesson that you missed was that she wasn't teaching you how to speak to her. She was teaching you how to speak to everybody. It's not kissing ass. It's not treating someone as if they're God. It's just called manners. And it's helpful. If you want somebody to do something for you, literally for nothing in return, and that's what I'm doing. If you want me to do a video for you on a game that you choose, literally getting nothing in return, no sort of compensation at all, then at the very least you could use some fucking goddamn manners. So basically, I tried to be nice. I tried to say I'm not going to block him. I said, you don't have to say please, and I don't have to do your videos. I don't have to do anything. And I told him, I'm no longer taking your requests. If you can't be polite, why am I going to waste my time doing a video for you? I told him to shut up, basically. And, he continued talking his shit. I don't know what he's going on about, so he got blocked. Then this other asshole came in. I don't even want to talk about this anymore because I'm just done with it. But this other guy, younger rapper, who'd been a subscriber from like forever, he comes up with all this, oh, you've changed. You used to like respond to comments. I still respond to comments. You go to any video and you look at the comments and I'm responding to them. And you used to be grateful. Now you treat your fans like shit. You remove comments. You have no respect for anyone. You think you're a god. Like I said, I've addressed the whole "you think you're a god" thing. I treat my fans like shit. I think I treat them pretty damn well. And if you got like I've always said, you got a problem, unsubscribe. I don't give a shit. One thing that he says is I remove comments. Absolutely not true. I do not remove comments. As a matter of fact, all these comments that I'm telling you about, all these asshole comments, they're still there. And the reason they're still there is because I don't remove comments. I just block the person and I leave their comments there for the world to see. The only thing I will do is occasionally I'll mark something as spam, and that's only if it is spam. I occasionally get this thing like I'll do a commentary on, I don't know, some Nintendo 64 game. Let's say I'm doing a commentary on, just out of the drop, just picking a game at random. Let's say I did like Mario Kart 64, and then I'll get this comment like, great video, you can play this game for free at, freegamesforyourasshole.com or whatever. And I'm just like, man, and I love how they started with great video, like you think it's going to be like a normal comment, and then all it is just a fucking advertisement. I'll mark it as spam, sometimes I'll remove those, but I don't remove comments. I don't know where that's coming from. And I said, yeah, I don't remove comments. This is my response to him. I love this. I say, I don't remove comments. I leave them up and I respond and block the person. If you've been paying attention, you'd know that. Hell, you haven't left a comment in ages, so I don't even know what you're bitching about. Me removing comments because it's blatantly not true. As for me not having respect, why would I respect someone who comes into this video and attacks me unprovoked? I'm not even going to block you because I want to know what the hell's wrong with you. And he's like, wow, when, anywhere did I say my comments? No, I didn't either. I was talking in general, so you're an asshole. Well, I got rid of both of these assholes. Like I said, if you got a problem with me, just unsubscribe. I don't need to hear about it. I got way too much shit to do. I got a life, And the only reason I'm bringing these up, the only reason I brought this up, the only reason that I felt I needed to address it at all is because these are longtime subscribers. And if you're a longtime subscriber and you have some sort of issue with me, please just unsubscribe because I don't care. I really don't give a shit if you have an issue with me. The only reason I don't usually bring up stuff like this is because 9 times out of 10, it's just random trolls. I got some random troll comments from somebody today that didn't make any sense at all, and I just blocked them. He actually was a subscriber. It was fairly recent. He'd never left me a comment until like last night, and it was all a bunch of bullshit. So who cares, I don't give a shit. And those comments are still there. So if you wanted to look at them, just look at the videos I posted last night, which would, of course, be the GameCube stuff and how to remove stickers and whatnot. Got a great response to that. I want to talk about some of the comments that people left on my sticker removal stuff, because not only did I get a lot of great comments, but, of course, I showed you my method of removing stickers from GameCube any games, really. Stickers from DVD cases, I should say. And a lot of people chimed in with their methods, which I thought were interesting. So I wanted to share them on the show because I thought they were thoughtful enough to share their methods. I might as well share it with anybody that's listening here. So let's see. Elga, I can't pronounce some of these names. Elgatope Lu 666 says that he uses alcohol, or it might be a she. I'm sorry, can't tell from the name. They use alcohol to get the stickers off. Of course, he's probably referring to rubbing alcohol. I did mention that briefly in the video. My personal experience is, if you're talking about sticker residue, I found that the alcohol actually bonds with the sticker residue, makes it very hard to get off. So I was using alcohol rubbing pads. It didn't really work out for me. But that's what this person uses, and they must have had some sort of success with it. Let's see. And I also said, some of these are great. Somebody mentioned Goo Gone. Can't Stand Idiots 94 says, I use Goo Gone, works wonders. I just put it on and brush it off with a paper towel and it's off. Goo Gone is a wonderful product. And I said, this is the absolute best way to do it. It's just I'm showing the zero cost method, so you don't have to go and buy something, But if you have some Goo Gone laying around, that is absolutely the best way of doing it. So let's see, who else? Get some freaking funny comments here. Let's see. This person, Armageddon Time. I was talking to him on MSN yesterday. He just he wants to try the spit technique, what I use. He says if there's any residue, he'd just say, nuts, and leave it at that, So there are some people who just aren't even trying, they just give up, and not only am I showing a great way to get rid of it, but I recommend you check out the comments on these videos, because there's a lot of other great ways to get rid of it. DRKR Zen also left a comment, and a bunch of other people have echoed this sentiment. Apparently, and I haven't seen this, but apparently some GameStops now are not putting stickers directly on the cases on the inside like I showed on the artwork, but they're actually putting the stickers on a bit of wax paper and then slipping it in there. And that's convenient for the people buying the games because they don't have to take it out the difficult way. But I haven't personally seen this. I'm thinking it may be a regional thing, because I haven't seen it at any of the GameStops that I've been to, and I've been to quite a few. I don't think it's a good idea, though. As convenient as it sounds, you just pull the piece of paper out and it's gone. The reason that GameStop has been doing this, and the reason that other companies have been doing this, where they're putting the stickers directly on the game itself, not on the plastic outside, is so people don't switch the stickers. Because if you put the sticker directly on the insert, it makes it harder to remove. And I guess they must have had a problem with people switching it, because like I said, you can go to GameStop and grab some expensive game. Like, let's say you were collecting GameCube and you saw something like Pikmin 2 or Mario Power Tennis or whatever, something really expensive, Star Wars Jedi Outcast or whatever. Then you could just go and you can grab any game. You can go and grab, say, a sticker for like fucking Madden 05, which is like $1.99, and switch it. And the thing is, that's not going to work anyway, because they tend to look at the stickers on the spine instead of the game case. So maybe you get lucky and say, well, maybe you get somebody who actually looks at the name of the game on the case and not the sticker, and you'd get, this $40 game for $2. And I think people have been trying that, and even if it's not working, I'm sure GameStop wants to save themselves the hassle of dealing with it, so they started putting it directly on the inserts. Now, I suppose you could always change the inserts, but then again, maybe you get somebody who puts two and two together and sees it's the wrong artwork. So really, I don't like the wax paper idea. I mean, I like it in terms of it would make it easier to clean them up for collecting purposes, but I don't like the idea for the fact that not only are they going to screw over GameStop, but they're going to screw over everybody. Because if they do get away with it, then somebody else is going to miss out on getting a game. They're going to bring a case, and they're not going to have the game. And they're basically just making it bad for everybody. So, yeah, there you have it. Let's see. Scout says you could use eucalyptus oil to get it off really easy. I suppose if you have eucalyptus oil, or if you're willing to go buy it. But, yeah, there you have it. A lot of people commenting on my shirt. The San Francisco Giants football team. I'm not a fan, in case anybody was wondering. Well, it's not even football, it's baseball. Somebody thought it was football. They said, are you a Giants fan? And then somebody corrected him, no, he's a Steelers fan. And then they said, oh, wait, no, this is baseball. I'm actually not a Giants fan even. The shirt was a gift from somebody who went to San Francisco, and they got me a shirt. So, yeah, it's just something I wear. I'm not a Giants fan, not a Giants baseball fan. Football, yeah, as long as they're not playing the Steelers, you know how it is. Just want to mention that. A lot of people commented on the shirt. So let's see what other ways of removing stickers from game cases people have suggested. Yeah, here's one more. This is FreeMonk3. He says, I could remember when I worked at a video store when I was younger, and we used lighter fluid to get stickers that were stuck on the actual paper cover. Just pour a little bit over the sticker until it's covered, and it peels right off, and then just wipe the cover. Yeah, I suppose, like I said, if you have lighter fluid laying around, that probably works just fine. Like I said, mine was the no-cost, you don't need any products, but if you do want to try something else, these are the suggestions that people have left for me on the How to Get Stickers Off video. Another thing that I addressed in that was the YouTube issues, and it looks like YouTube is metamorphosizing. It's going through some changes. The layout on some pages is drastically different. It's a pain in the ass, especially since it's not very functional. If you hit the view all comments, one thing that's really pissing me off, if you try to reply from someone from there, it gives you this little tiny box and you start typing, and half the shit that you're typing is completely cut off. So that's bizarre. Yeah. So, moving on along, here's some news, some video game news that I just noticed earlier. This is from Games Radar. There's going to be a sequel to BlazBlue. If you remember the game BlazBlue Calamity Trigger, which is an absolutely beautiful two-dimensional fighter for the Xbox 360, and I believe it might have come out for PlayStation 3, I'm not sure. If you want to take a look at it, just look on my channel. I actually did do a video of BlazBlue Calamity Trigger on Xbox 360 when I first got it. A really fun game. There's a sequel coming out, so if you're into, two-dimensional fighters, especially if you're into, say, Guilty Gear, because it is made by the same people, Arc Systems Works, the new game is going to be called BlazBlue Continuum Shift. It's going to have some new characters, some new gameplay modes, and, of course, new moves, new stages, that kind of stuff. There's, a lot of information out there about what else is going on. Some of the features, if you're familiar with the PSP version of BlazBlue, some of the features from that version are going to be in the new game. So, just wanted to mention that BlazBlue Continuum Shift is the name of the new game coming out for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Don't know when it's coming out, but I just wanted to mention that because I know a lot of people love those 2D games just like I do. Just a couple of other little things that are in the news. One thing is that Microsoft's getting kind of weird about this whole Blu-ray thing. Here's the story as I read it. Microsoft's Aaron Greenberg has claimed that Xbox 360 is nearly twice PlayStation 3's installed base, partly because its lack of a Blu-ray drive allows it to be sold at a more attractive price point. The Xbox product director claimed that being $100 cheaper than PlayStation 3 is part of the reason we're nearly twice the installed base, blah, 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 blah. Are they beating a dead horse here or what? Like, we know that the Xbox 360 is, generally speaking, cheaper than the PlayStation 3, and we know that's one of the reasons why it sells a little bit better. I think I don't know. I'm so sick of this whole console wars thing. I think that they're just overestimating how much of an advantage they have, especially since Sony has been really gaining some momentum lately. Yeah, the 360 outsells the PlayStation 3. The 360 is cheaper than the PlayStation 3. Yes, those two things are indeed related somewhat. It's not the only reason, but I don't think that. I don't know. I mean, the Blu-ray thing also is getting them certain exclusives. Of course I could point at Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. I couldn't give less of a shit about the game. But there's a game where they really, really took advantage of the Blu-ray format, and thus it doesn't come out for Xbox 360. Final Fantasy XIII was not released on the Xbox 360 in Japan, only here. And one thing is, it's on 3 discs. It's on 3 discs, and of course for the graphics whores, the resolution isn't as big. I don't give a shit about that personally. But for the graphics whores, they complain about that. And that's proof that those Blu-ray games can work on the Xbox 360. You just do them over multiple discs and dip down the resolution, not a whole lot, but a little bit. Here's another quote from him. The fact that we're able to offer consoles starting $199 is a benefit of not being burdened with that cost. Of course, talking about the Blu-ray player. I don't know why this is news. I really think that they're just beating it into our heads what we already know, and that what really doesn't matter all that much. So I don't know. The whole console war thing, I've said it many times, it's getting ridiculous, and they're just sniping at each other, and it's stupid. It's really stupid. But speaking of Xbox, this is a news story that I was looking at from computerandvideogames.com. Apparently, there's this picture out there of a circuit board, and it's apparently showing the innards of a new Xbox 360, and judging solely on the picture, they're saying that, well, maybe this is a complete redesign of the Xbox 360 hardware. And, of course, people are already starting to call it Xbox 360 Slim, which I think is hilarious, because that's, of course, the PlayStation thing. What's the point? You know what I'm saying? What is the point? Unless it's going to have like a bigger hard drive, a lower price, I don't know. what's the point? Like, for example, my PlayStation 2, I have the old model. The only way I would buy a PlayStation 2 Slim is if my PS2 broke down and I needed a new one, and I just went to GameStop and picked one up for like $40, and there you have it. So, let me know what you think about this. The Xbox 360 Slim, is this something we really need? Are people going to go out? Are they going to replace their Xboxes? There's a rumor that they're going to support USB hard drives. Like, what is going on? The downloadable content system is going to be streamlined. They're talking about how it's so wonderful that they don't have Blu-ray. They're supposedly celebrating their best February yet. I mean, it just seems that there's a lot of celebration going on in Xbox camp, and I think that it's just kind of strange. Like, are they a little bit worried? To me, this reeks of worry and desperation, and I think that they see Sony, who they had previously not worried about, starting to gain some ground, which is only natural, because PlayStation consoles always start off slowly and then gain momentum later on. That's the way it's always been. PlayStation 3 started off dead in the water, and I think it needed a little more than being rolled down a hill. It needed fucking jumper cables and a defibrillator, but it looks like the PlayStation 3 now has a pulse. And for all you could talk about how much of a failure the PSP is, people are forgetting how much of a success it is in regions like, say, Japan and Europe. As a matter of fact, in Europe, I believe it outsells the DS, which is a shock. Because in Japan and America, the DS is the #1 selling system. Speaking of the DS, I got to rant about this a little. The DS Lite is what I have, and I like it. Now, my DS Lite, I did buy it used. It already had a voided warranty. I bought it because it was cheap, and I was able to get it, and a bunch of games right away. I do sort of regret not buying a newer console, a new one. I bought a used one. I usually don't buy used consoles. I almost always buy new consoles. The exceptions were that and my Xbox 360. The Xbox 360, I rationalized that if I buy a console that's well used, I know it doesn't have any problems. And so far that's worked out for me. I've had it for over a year. I play it heavily, and it doesn't overheat. It doesn't even get really hot. And I'm always checking it, so there's that. The DS, though, of course, they introduced the DSi last year, and I was just a little taken aback by it because they're like, we got to make it slimmer. So, in sacrificing the Game Boy Advance slot, we've made it slimmer. And that pisses me off, not only because you're taking a feature out, but because that's a big part of what I use the DS for. I use it to play Game Boy Advance games. I have the Game Boy Advance. I had the first model Game Boy Advance, and it always pissed me off that the lighting was bad. So then they come out with the SP, which has a design that I don't care for. It has a light, but then it's missing like a headphone jack or something. And then comes the Game Boy Micro, which with my, man-sized hands, doesn't really work. I don't know why they made it so tiny. And I'm like, I didn't feel like buying the same hardware just with a slightly different configuration and a light on it. So the DS to me is wonderful because it's a nice big bright screen that you can play Game Boy Advance games on. And as I've said on the blog that I no longer use for updates, I now only use it for this show. If the DS had also played Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, I might have found a way to graft it onto my body because that would have been wonderful. It would have been like basically the Game Boy Player, which is that thing that clips on the bottom of the GameCube. And of course I do have one of those. But alright, so they're like, we took out a major feature, now you can't even play certain games. And I'm talking of course about the Guitar Hero on Tour games. There's 3 of them. And that guitar grip that you play, and you guys know I'm a big Guitar Hero fan, that plugs into slot 2, which is where Game Boy Advance games go. And to me, it's like you're taking out a major feature. So I decided to skip on the DSi, and then I hear about this thing, the DSi XL. In Japan, they call it, I believe, the DSi SL. But this is this huge thing. It's much bigger. It's much thicker. It has bigger, brighter screens, and a huge stylus that doesn't even fit into the system. It looks like a pen. So it's like, so it must have a Game Boy Advance slot, right? No. Why? I don't understand why they didn't bring this back. I mean, I guess that would be admitting your mistakes. And we all know from Nintendo's history that they will eventually admit they made a mistake, but they're very slow in doing it, which is why after making the mistake of abandoning CD technology to stick with cartridges, which is what harmed the Nintendo 64's sales and image, even though they did eventually go to discs, it took them a long time to get on board with using a more recognizable form of media. And even, you know what, they don't even do it. They haven't even done it yet because, you know, it's very easy to assume that those discs that you slide into the Wii are DVDs because they look like DVDs, they act like DVDs, and they have the same properties and the same storage capacity as DVDs, so they must be DVDs, right? Well, it's kind of like with the Dreamcast. They look like CDs, they act like CDs, but they're not. They were called GD-ROMs, which is a proprietary format specifically made for the Dreamcast. These Wii discs are actually the same discs as the GameCube discs, proprietary Nintendo discs, only bigger and therefore with storage space comparable to a DVD. So Nintendo, you know, like it's like they almost sort of admit that they make mistakes, but then they don't, you know. And I guess, I don't know, I guess it could be a good business model. I guess they're saying, you know, we stand behind our decisions. There's something to be said for that. There really is. Because as much as you can say that the Nintendo 64 harmed them, it still was a wonderful system with many wonderful games, and I have many great memories attached to it of playing Nintendo 64 games. Of course, there's no doubt in my mind that when you look back on this, the PlayStation was a better console. And if you look at the GameCube and the PS2, honestly, I can't say that the GameCube was the better console. I can say that it has a lot of appeal to me personally, and that I collect the games for it for a reason, and that it's a personal favorite. But when you're speaking objectively, you have to look at all the factors and not just your own opinion. And obviously, the PlayStation 2 is king of the hill for a reason. Right now, the Wii is king of the hill for a reason. And you can bitch about those reasons. You can sit and say, oh, well, it's because they appeal to non-gamers. Yeah, well, what's wrong with that, really? I mean, and the hardcore gamers, for them, the top of the heap is the Xbox 360. And it's probably going to remain that way for a while longer. Because, you know, like I said, what Microsoft is saying and doing now, to me, it seems like they're just trying to get ahead because Sony's catching up. So let me know what you think about that. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. I know I do talk about console war stuff a lot, but it always seems when I'm ready to do the show that's what's in the news. That's what's going on is console war stuff. So why don't we take a break from that, play a little music. Actually, now that I think of it, I played you a little music at the beginning of the show, and I never told you what song that was, so I hope you've been waiting here patiently, wondering what the hell was that song? He never said it. That was the end and the beginning from the Breath of Fire 4 soundtrack. And actually, if you ever want to hear a wonderful, wonderful soundtrack to an RPG, you couldn't do better than Breath of Fire 4 on the PlayStation. That's a game I'd love to see. I'd love to see it remade or at least re-released. Breath of Fire 3 did get a re-release on PlayStation Portable. Sure, it was only in Europe, but luckily that's a region-free console, so you can just go ahead and buy it off of eBay or whatever and pop it into your American or Japanese PlayStation Portable. Doesn't even need to be modded or hacked or anything. So that's pretty great that the PSP does that. But let's play some more music. As a matter of fact, to make up for the fact that I'm, 45 minutes into the show almost, and I haven't told you the name of that song until just now, I'll play another song from Breath of Fire 4, and I'll tell you what it is ahead of time. I'm going to play a song called, let's see, which one am I going to play? Here's a good song because it fits in with my theme. Because you all know I love cursing up a storm. Here's a song called Bastard Sword. You bastard. So here's Bastard Sword from the Breath of Fire 4 soundtrack. Okay, so there's some more Breath of Fire 4 for you. Bastard Sword for all you bastards out there. So I wanted to wrap up the show with more video game news. I mean, you know, it's really a downer, a lot of ranting. Let's talk about some happy news. Let's talk about some new games that are coming out. I mean, I mentioned BlazBlue. I got a bunch of other games to talk about. For those of you who enjoyed Fat Princess on the PlayStation 3, that was, of course, on PSN, there is another game coming out called Fat Princess Fistful of Cake. This is coming out for PSP. So those of you who maybe you only have the PSP, you don't have the PlayStation 3, you're not interested in downloads, you can get this on PSN for the PSP, and it's also coming out, of course, on the UMD discs, which are not going anywhere, guys. If you're unfamiliar with Fat Princess, this is like really one of those things that almost makes the PlayStation 3 worth it just for that. It's interesting. It's a capture the flag, a tile of war game, but instead of a flag, it's this little princess girl. And the trick is not only to try and capture the other princess, but to shove as much cake down your princess's throat as possible, and just make her as fat as possible, which makes it difficult for the enemies to carry her back to their castle. The fatter she is, the more units they need to capture her and to carry her. Does it remind you of Pikmin? Yes, it does. If you liked Pikmin, you probably like Fat Princess Fistful of Cake. Speaking of Pikmin, Shigeru Miyamoto, he's been quiet about this, but he has said that Pikmin 3 development is, according to him, well underway. Well, that's wonderful. I'd love if there was a release date or if it was shown at E3 or whatnot. I'm a big fan of Pikmin. If you haven't tried Pikmin, it's basically distilled wonder and joy put onto an optical disc. So, Pikmin 3, very excited about that. Been talking about Final Fantasy 13 a lot. Of course, I'm still playing through it. I'm on the second disc now, so I am getting through it. This is interesting. Final Fantasy 13 has recorded the largest first-week sales ever in the franchise's history. It has sold over 1 million units in North America in 5 days, and that's including both the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions, of course. And I think that, it's not only because it's a good game, I think that it's selling quicker and more simply because it is multi-platform. Because both owners of the Xbox 360 and owners of the Wii, the PlayStation 3, I have something else to talk about the Wii, can enjoy it and they can all buy it. So I think that's why it did it, and I hope this leads to more multi-platform goodness. Of course, the Wii I was mentioning, there's zero chance of them ever getting Final Fantasy 13. So you'll have to deal with just Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, the new one. I think it's called the Crystal Bearers, and of course there's a bunch of Final Fantasy games on the Virtual Console and a bunch of Final Fantasy games on WiiWare, including some very interesting, very good tower defense games. So if you're into tower defense games, you should definitely check out Crystal Defenders. It's actually really cool. Now this is interesting. Japanese sales trends are very different from American sales trends. But this is what's going on in Japan right now. I just want to let you guys know what's going on. What are they buying up in Japan right now? Because it gives you an idea of not only a different culture, but some of this stuff isn't out here yet, obviously, because games come out there before they come out here. So this might give you some insight into new games that are coming out. Right now, the biggest seller over there is Pokemon Ranger Path of Light for the DS. Some game called Friend Collection for the DS is right after that. Of course, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, still a huge seller over there. What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord 3D for the Wii? And that's an interesting one because I didn't realize that was coming out. What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord? Of course, a very interesting game for the PSP. Now it looks like it's expanding to the Wii, and it's in 3D. Dynasty Warriors Strike Force 2 for the PSP, selling well this week. Absolute Hero modding project for the PSP. I don't think we'll get that one. Battlefield Bad Company 2 for the PS3. That one's from Electronic Arts, so that's a Western game. That's the best-selling Western game over there right now. RPG Maker DS, I'd love if we got that. I tout it, though. Dragon Quest IX, still a huge seller over there in Japan for the DS. Of course, now it's part of the Ultimate Hits, so it, at a lower price point and whatnot. And Wii Fit Plus, still a big seller over there. Hardware, though, is very interesting. You'd be surprised to know that the Wii and the DSi, rather, are not the top-selling systems right now. Surprisingly, the PSP is number one. So like I said, you could sit there and think of the PSP as being a failure, but right now, this week, it sold more units in Japan than the Wii did. The PS3 is after that. You wonder about that. Of course, the PS3 is bigger in Japan than it is here because the Xbox 360 not as popular there because it's a Western console, and they do have a sense of, I guess you'd call it national unity. They prefer to buy from Japanese companies. And if you think that's, stupid or whatever, well, just think of how here in this country, in the United States, and I mean, not necessarily many of you might be listening to this who are not from the United States, but in my country, in the United States, a lot of companies use Made in the USA, Buy American. They use these as selling points. So it's really not that surprising. A lot of countries do this. Of course, the DS actually probably would be the top-selling system if you were to combine all of its different versions, the DSi LL, the DSi, and the DSi Lite. Then, of course, there's the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 2, and at the bottom of the list is the PSP Go. So it's kind of interesting. That's what's going on in Japan. Figured I'd talk about this. I got some Metroid news. Apparently, Metroid Other M, which is the new game coming out for the Wii, is going to have a different control scheme than you're used to. Of course, the previous Metroid game on the Wii, which was Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, was in first person, so you use the nunchuck. That seemed to be natural. But something different going on here. This is not a first-person game, so the control scheme is going to be a bit differently. Apparently, there was not going to be a nunchuck. So here's what Sakamoto had to say about it. He was against incorporating the nunchuck for Metroid Other M, and the reasons he says there's two reasons why it's not going to use the nunchuck. This is what he says. The first, with the team I've been working with, we've been making the Metroid series in 2D up until this point. Even though we've been looking for a way to control Samus in 3D, we wanted to achieve the feeling you had when Samus was in 2D. We decided the traditional D-pad for a movement plus jumping and shooting on buttons was the most appropriate control scheme for this direction. The second reason, and let me preface this by saying I don't think bad games use the nunchuck, because there are a lot of great games that do, there's a certain image created with the nunchuck. It's a bit of a barrier in accessibility because it's a different control. So basically what he's saying is he wants to do it old school, and he doesn't want people to be intimidated by the control scheme. I don't think this is a bad idea. Let me know what you think. I want to hear what you think. And here's an interesting rumor. You guys might remember back when Metroid Prime 2 came out, there was a reference to Project Dread somewhere in there, and people have been talking about Metroid Dread as being this two-dimensional Metroid game for the DS, and for the longest time Nintendo has ignored it, they've denied it. Now they're saying that it might actually exist, or it might have existed. It's interesting. So here's again with Yoshio Sakamoto. When asked about Metroid Dread, he says, "It's always difficult when people bring up Metroid Dread. The only thing people have heard about the game are rumors. We never had an official announcement at E3 or anything like that. I think there was at one point where a little bit of information leaked, but now we don't know how to really talk about the project. All I can really say is that I wish I could put an end to the rumors." He's not denying that the existence of documents got out, but basically he's saying, be patient, keep waiting, you never know. I kind of doubt that there's going to be a game specifically called Metroid Dread for the DS. I think that's just probably a pet name they have for it, as Nintendo tends to do that. They do that with their systems too. You guys remember the Wii? Before we knew it was called the Wii, it was called the Revolution. The GameCube. Before we knew it was called the GameCube, it was called the Star Cube. And before we heard that, they were calling it Dolphin. And I'm really glad they didn't call it Dolphin. But, there you have it. I wanted to mention that. So anyway, I guess I'm going to wrap up the show here. I wanted to mention, of course, I want to hear your questions and comments. If you got comments on the show, leave it either on the video that announces the new show, or you could email it to me, or you could, of course, send me a private message. Same thing goes for questions. I want your questions. Anything you want me to answer, my thoughts on anything, or whatever. It could be crazy, goofy, as long as it has something to do with, relevant. Don't ask me, anything about, like, how do they cram all that grammar or whatever. Something to do with, video games, or at least relevant interests. So I want your questions. I want your comments. We'll address them. Hope you enjoyed this episode. This has been episode 4. We'll join you next week for episode 5. NecroVMX out.